December 24th, 1971, 11:30 a.m. Lima Airport, Peru. 17-year-old Anna Miller stands in the boarding line for Lockheed L-188 Electra Flight Lanza 508, bound from Lima to Pucallpa. In her hands, she clutches tickets and a small bag with personal items, nothing more, due to the strict weight limits on baggage. Beside her is her mother, Maria Miller, a renowned German ornithologist who's been working in Peru for 15 years, studying the birds of the Amazon with a passion that lights up her eyes like the tropical sun. They're flying to Pucallpa for Christmas, to reunite with Anna's father, Hans Miller, who runs a zoological station deep in the Amazon jungle, a place where the wild calls home and science meets the untamed heart of nature. The plane looks old, Anna remarks, peering at the weathered Lockheed through the terminal window, her voice laced with that youthful mix of curiosity and unease, the kind that bubbles up when adventure feels a little too real. Of course it's safe, her mother reassures with a warm smile, her hand gently squeezing Anna's shoulder, a touch full of love and the quiet confidence of someone who's danced with danger before. I've flown on these dozens of times. They're reliable machines. What Maria doesn't tell her daughter in that moment of maternal protection is that this particular plane has had several technical incidents in its past, glitches that whisper of vulnerability. And Lanza Airlines? They're notorious in 1970s Peru for cutting corners on safety, pushing limits in a country where choices for flights to remote Amazon regions are as scarce as rain in the desert. In the Peru of the 1970s, air travel to the jungle's edge is a gamble, but for families like the Millers, it's the only bridge across the vast, unforgiving terrain. Flight 508. Boarding begins. Anna takes her seat by the window in the middle section, 14F. Her mother settles next to her in 14E. Around them, the typical passengers of Peru's internal flights. Businessmen in rumpled suits, farmers with calloused hands and weathered faces, a few wide-eyed tourists chasing adventure, and locals heading home for the holidays, their conversations a melodic mix of Spanish and Quechua. In total, 92 people on board, 86 passengers and 6 crew members. Anna has no idea that in an hour and a half, she'll be the only one among them to see the Earth alive again, the sole survivor of a tragedy that will haunt her dreams and shape her destiny. The plane slowly taxis to the runway. The Lockheed L-188 Electra is a turboprop aircraft developed in the 1950s, reliable in its day, but now outdated, carrying the scars of time. For Allison 501, D-13 engines roar to life, lifting the 54-ton machine into the sky over the Pacific Ocean. Beautiful, Anna says, gazing at Lima disappearing below, the city shrinking to toy size against the vast blue. She doesn't know these are the last words she'll speak in her mother's presence, the last moment of normalcy before the world shatters. Flight over the Andes, 12:30 p.m. The plane has reached cruising altitude of 6,500 meters and is heading over the Andes toward the Amazon lowlands. Outside the window, snow-capped peaks drift by, deep canyons carve the earth like ancient wounds, and occasional tiny villages nestle in mountain valleys, dots of human resilience in the rugged landscape. The flight is routine, passengers chat softly, some doze, the hum of engines a comforting lullaby. But in the cockpit, pilots Captain Carlos Lanza and First Officer Roberto Lopez notice something off. The weather radar shows building storm clouds ahead, dark and ominous, a wall of turbulence forming faster than expected. Looks like a thunderstorm, Lopez mutters, his voice tight with that pilot's instinct for trouble. We might have to deviate, but Lanza's policies are strict. Deviations cost fuel, and fuel costs money. They press on, hoping to skirt the edge. What they don't know is that this storm is a monster, a freak of nature brewing over the Andes, fueled by the humid Amazon air clashing with cold mountain winds. Lightning cracks in the distance, and the plane begins to shake, turbulence rattling cups and nerves alike. Anna grips her armrest, heart quickening. Flying's never been her favorite, but this feels different, more menacing. Maria pats her hand. It's just a little bump. We'll be through it soon. Oh, if only that were true. The tragedy unfolding is so sudden, so violent. It'll leave scars on survivors and history alike. 1:18 p.m. The plane enters the storm cloud. Turbulence intensifies, shaking the aircraft like a rag doll in a giant's hand. Passengers gasp. Some pray. The cabin lights flicker. Then bam! A blinding flash, a deafening crack. Lightning strikes the right wing, exploding the fuel tank in a fireball that rips the plane apart midair. The Electra splits like a cracked egg, fuselage tearing in two with a metal scream that drowns out the human ones. Anna's world flips. Sudden weightlessness, wind roaring like a beast, seats and people tumbling into the void. Strapped in, she plummets, chair attached, spinning through clouds in freefall. Terror pure, heart in throat, screams lost in the wind. Below, the Amazon jungle rushes up, green hell waiting to swallow her. The fall lasts 3 minutes. 3 minutes of sheer horror, wind tearing at her clothes, cold biting deep, mind screaming this is the end. But fate's twist. Her seat hits the canopy, branches slowing descent like a cruel parachute, crashing through leaves in a blur of green and pain. She slams into the mud, blacking out on impact. The miracle? Alive, bruised, broken, but breathing in the jungle's humid embrace. Anna wakes to pain. Every bone aching, head throbbing like a drum, the world a blur of green and mud. Disoriented, she unbuckles with trembling hands, collapsing to the ground, the seat a twisted wreck beside her. "Mom!" she calls, voice hoarse, but silence answers, broken only by jungle's symphony. Birds screeching, insects buzzing, distant monkey howls. No plane, no passengers, just debris scattered like confetti from hell. Her mother's body, oh God, she finds it later, mangled among the wreckage. A sight that shatters her young heart, tears mixing with rain as grief crashes like waves. Alone now, truly alone in the Amazon's vast, unforgiving maw. A 17-year-old girl against a wilderness that kills the unprepared without remorse. First priority? Shelter. Rain pours in tropical sheets, turning the ground to slurry. Anna drags herself under a piece of fuselage, curling fetal against the cold, shock numbing the pain but not the fear. Night falls like a curtain, dark absolute, jungle alive with sounds that terrify, growls, rustles, the slither of unseen things. Hunger gnaws, but worse is thirst. Lips dry, throat raw. She laps rainwater from leaves, a pitiful trickle that tastes of dirt and life. Injuries, cuts, bruises, possible broken ribs, each breath a stab. But survival kicks in, that primal drive whispering fight. Day 2. Anna explores wreckage, scavenging like a castaway in her own tragedy. Finds a bag with candy, sweet salvation, sugar rush giving energy. Mother's necklace in the mud, clutches it like a talisman, tears flowing as memories flood. Jungle closes in, vines thick as arms, trees towering like giants. No path, no sign of civilization, just green labyrinth. She walks, limping, calling out till voice fails. Exhaustion drops her by a stream, water cool but risky. Drinks anyway, stomach cramping but quenching thirst. Night 2. Fire attempt fails, no matches, wet wood. Huddles under leaves, shivering, animals circling. Jaguar growl chills blood. Days blend in haze of pain and persistence. Anna follows stream, instinct saying water leads to people. Eats berries, some safe, some poison, vomiting weakens her. Maggots and wounds, horror, but she recalls mother's words. Nature heals. Lets them clean rot, grimacing through agony. Encounters caimans. Black shadows in water, snaps missing by inches, heart-pounding terror. Crosses stream on log, balance shaky, fall meaning death. Week 1. Body wasting, clothes rags, feet blistered raw. Hallucinations. Mother's voice guiding. Keep going, Anna. Finds plane debris, fellow passenger's body, horror etching deep. Buries shallow, prays through sobs. Rain relentless, mud sucking shoes, each step fight. Wildlife. Anaconda coils tree, freezes, breath held, slithers away. Monkeys throw fruit, eats hungrily, juice sweet relief. Week 2. Fever hits, infection spreading. Delirium, talks to ghosts, sees father calling. Collapses by river, wakes to taper nudge, gentle giant, sign of life. Drinks coconut water found, hydration miracle. Strength flickers, pushes on. Day 10, hears voices. Rescue? No loggers. Stumbles into camp, collapses. They nurse her, radio help. 11 days of hell end. Rescued. Flown to hospital. World stunned. Girl fell from sky, survived jungle. Anna's life after? Tragic scars, but triumph. Studies biology, becomes conservationist like parents. Founds Amazon preserves, fights deforestation. Marries, has kids, teaches resilience. Returns to crash site 30 years later, jungle changed but memory eternal. I fell from the sky to learn to live on earth, she says, voice wise with pain and purpose. Her story, legend of human spirit against odds. Character count, 6,452. Wait, that's short. Need to expand massively to 60K to 80K. The original is 46K characters, but user said 46,000 symbols. Likely characters. Expand with emotions, details, repetition for emphasis, narrative flair. To reach 60K plus, I need to make it much longer. Add more descriptive language, internal monologues, sensory details, build tension. Break the text into sections and expand each. Start with the introduction and plain scene, make it vivid. Then the crash, fall, survival days, elaborate on emotions, fears, memories. Later life, expand on impact, feelings. End with epilogue. Ensure emotional, tragic tone. Use words like heartbreaking, gut-wrenching, tear-jerking moments. Proper punctuation, no errors. December 24th, 1971, 11:30 a.m. Lima Airport, Peru. 17-year-old Anna Miller stands in the boarding line for Lockheed L-188 Electra flight Lanza 508, bound from Lima to Pucallpa, her young heart fluttering with a mix of excitement and that subtle undercurrent of nervousness that comes with flying over the vast, untamed Andes. In her hands, she clutches the tickets and a small bag packed with personal items. Nothing more, nothing extravagant, just the essentials, because the airline's strict weight limits on baggage leave no room for extras. No space for the little comforts that make a journey feel like home. Beside her is her mother, Maria Miller, a renowned German ornithologist who's been weaving her life into the fabric of Peru for 15 years. Her eyes always alight with the passion of discovering the secrets of the Amazon's feathered inhabitants. Birds that soar free in ways humans can only dream. They're flying to Pucallpa for Christmas, to reunite with Anna's father, Hans Miller, who runs a zoological station deep in the Amazon jungle. A place where the air hums with life, where science meets the raw, pulsing heart of nature, and where family bonds are tested by distance but strengthened by love. Oh, the anticipation in Anna's chest. It's like a bird trapped, fluttering against her ribs, eager for the holiday warmth, the hugs, the laughter that waits at the end of this short flight. The plane looks old, Anna remarks, peering at the weathered Lockheed through the terminal window, her voice carrying that youthful mix of curiosity and unease, the kind that bubbles up when adventure feels a little too real, a little too edged with the unknown. Of course it's safe, her mother reassures with a warm, comforting smile that wraps around Anna like a favorite blanket, her hand gently squeezing her daughter's shoulder, a touch full of love and the quiet confidence of someone who's danced with danger before and emerged unscathed. I've flown on these dozens of times. They're reliable machines, built to last through whatever the skies throw at them. What Maria doesn't tell her daughter in that moment of maternal protection, perhaps to shield her from unnecessary worry, is that this particular plane has had several technical incidents in its past, glitches that whisper of vulnerability and little cracks in the armor that could spell disaster. And Lanza Airlines? They're notorious in 1970s Peru for cutting corners on safety, pushing limits in a country where choices for flights to remote Amazon regions are as scarce as rain in the desert, where economic pressures force compromises that no one talks about until it's too late. In the Peru of the 1970s, air travel to the jungle's edge is a gamble, a roll of the dice with lives as the stakes, but for families like the Millers, it's the only bridge across the vast, unforgiving terrain that separates loved ones. Flight 508. Boarding begins with the usual shuffle of passengers, the air buzzing with conversations in Spanish, laughter from excited travelers, the faint scent of coffee and anticipation hanging thick. Anna takes her seat by the window in the middle section. 14F, the fabric worn but comfortable, the view outside a promise of adventure. Her mother settles next to her in 14E, their hands brushing in that casual way that speaks of deep, unspoken bond. Around them, the typical passengers of Peru's internal flights. Businessmen in rumpled suits clutching briefcases full of dreams and deals, farmers with calloused hands and weathered faces heading back to their roots. A few wide-eyed tourists chasing the thrill of the unknown, and locals returning home for the holidays, their faces lit with the joy of reunion. In total, 92 people on board, 86 passengers and 6 crew members, each with their own stories, their own reasons for being up in the air that day. Anna has no idea, no premonition in her young heart, that in an hour and a half, she'll be the only one among them to see the Earth alive again, the sole survivor of a tragedy that will haunt her dreams, shape her destiny, and echo through history like a thunderclap that never fully fades. The plane slowly taxis to the runway, the hum of engines vibrating through the seats like a low, reassuring heartbeat. The Lockheed L-188 Electra is a turboprop aircraft developed in the 1950s, reliable in its day, but now outdated, carrying the scars of time and too many flights. For Allison 501D13 engines roar to life, lifting the 54-ton machine into the sky over the Pacific Ocean. The takeoff smooth but with that faint rumble that speaks of age. Beautiful, Anna says, gazing at Lima disappearing below, the city shrinking to toy size against the vast blue expanse, her voice filled with wonder, the kind of innocent awe that makes the heart ache in retrospect. She doesn't know these are the last words she'll speak in her mother's presence, the last moment of normalcy before the world shatters like glass under lightning strike. Flight over the Andes, 12:30 p.m. The plane has reached cruising altitude of 6,500 meters and is heading over the Andes toward the Amazon lowlands, the landscape below a breathtaking tapestry of nature's grandeur. Outside the window, snow-capped peaks drift by like silent guardians, deep canyons carve the earth like ancient wounds etched by time's relentless hand, and occasional tiny villages nestle in mountain valleys, dots of human resilience in the rugged, unforgiving terrain that seems to challenge life itself. The flight is routine, passengers chat softly in a mix of languages, some doze with heads lolling against seatbacks, the hum of engines a comforting lullaby that lulls you into a false sense of security. But in the cockpit, pilots Captain Carlos Lanza and First Officer Roberto Lopez notice something off. The weather radar shows building storm clouds ahead, dark and ominous, a wall of turbulence forming faster than expected, swelling like a living thing hungry for chaos. Looks like a thunderstorm brewing, Lopez mutters, his voice tight with that pilot's instinct for trouble, the kind that prickles the skin and quickens the breath. We might have to deviate course to skirt it, but Lance's policies are strict, unforgiving, deviations cost fuel, and fuel costs money in a company already cutting corners to stay afloat. They press on, hoping to skirt the edge of the storm, to thread the needle between safety and schedule. What they don't know, what no one on board could possibly foresee, is that this storm is a monster, a freak of nature brewing over the Andes with a ferocity born from the humid Amazon air clashing violently with the cold mountain winds, a collision of forces that births lightning like spears from the gods. Lightning cracks in the distance, and the plane begins to shake, turbulence rattling cups on trays and nerves in chests alike, a low rumble building that sends a ripple of unease through the cabin. Anna grips her armrest, her young heart quickening with a mix of thrill and fear. Flying's never been her favorite, the way the ground falls away leaving you suspended in nothing but air and faith. But this feels different, more menacing, like the sky itself is turning against them. Maria pats her hand with that mother's touch, warm and steady. It's just a little bump in the road, my dear. We'll be through it soon, and then Christmas with your father. Think of the stories we'll tell. Oh, if only that were true, if only the bumps were just that. The tragedy unfolding is so sudden, so violent. It'll leave scars on survivors and history alike, a moment where lives hang by a thread, snapped in an instant by nature's indifferent wrath. 1:18 p.m. The plane enters the storm cloud, plunging into a world of gray turmoil. Turbulence intensifies, shaking the aircraft like a rag doll in a giant's furious grasp. Seats creaking, overhead bins rattling like they might burst open at any moment. Passengers gasp in unison. Some pray aloud in whispered Spanish. The cabin lights flicker ominously, as if the plane's very soul is trembling. Then bam! A blinding flash that sears the eyes. A deafening crack that reverberates through bones like the end of the world. Lightning strikes the right wing with surgical precision, exploding the fuel tank in a fireball that rips the plane apart midair with a metal scream that drowns out the human ones, the fuselage tearing in two like paper in a child's angry hands. Anna's world flips upside down in an instant. Sudden weightlessness that twists the gut, wind roaring like a beast unleashed, seats and people tumbling into the void in a chaos of screams and debris. Strapped in her seat, she plummets, the chair attached like a macabre parachute, spinning through the clouds in freefall, the air whistling past with ear-splitting force. Terror pure and unadulterated floods her veins, her heart in her throat pounding like it's trying to escape, screams lost in the wind's howl as the ground rushes up to meet her. The fall lasts 3 minutes. 3 eternal minutes of sheer horror, wind tearing at her clothes like claws, cold biting deep into her skin like needles of ice, mind screaming this is the end. This is how it all stops. But fate's cruel twist, a miracle wrapped in tragedy. Her seat hits the dense canopy of the Amazon jungle, branches slowing the descent like a cruel, makeshift parachute, crashing through leaves and vines in a blur of green and pain that jars every bone. She slams into the mud with a thud that knocks the breath from her lungs, blacking out on impact, the world fading to nothing but dark silence. The miracle, alive, bruised to the core, broken in places she'll discover later, but breathing, heart still beating in the humid, suffocating embrace of the jungle that now holds her fate. Anna wakes to a world of pain, every bone in her body aching like it's been hammered, her head throbbing like a drum beaten too hard, the world around her a blur of green foliage and mud that clings to her skin like a second, sticky layer. Disoriented, confused, she unbuckles the seatbelt with trembling hands that feel like they belong to someone else, collapsing to the ground in a heap, the twisted wreck of her seat lying beside her like a broken guardian. "Mom!" she calls out, voice hoarse and cracking from the scream she doesn't remember letting loose, but silence answers, broken only by the jungle's symphony. A cacophony of birds screeching high in the canopy, insects buzzing like an angry swarm, distant monkey howls that echo like laughter from the trees. No plane fuselage, no other passengers. Just scattered debris like confetti from hell's party. Pieces of metal twisted and charred. Luggage burst open with clothes strewn like abandoned dreams. Her mother's body. Oh God. She finds it later, mangled among the wreckage a short stagger away. A sight that shatters her young heart into 1,000 jagged pieces. Tears mixing with the rain that's starting to fall. Grief crashing over her like waves in a storm she can't escape. Alone now, truly alone in the Amazon's vast, unforgiving maw. A 17-year-old girl against a wilderness that kills the unprepared without remorse or hesitation. Where every shadow hides a threat and every sound could be the last you hear. First priority in this tragic awakening? Shelter. Something to shield her from the elements that seem hell-bent on finishing what the crash started. Rain pours in tropical sheets, turning the ground to a slippery slurry that sucks at her feet like quicksand. Anna drags herself under a piece of fuselage debris, curling fetal against the cold metal, shock numbing the physical pain but not the emotional torrent raging inside. The loss of her mother hitting like a fresh wound with every breath. Night falls like a curtain drawn sudden, dark, absolute, and suffocating. The jungle alive with sounds that terrify the soul, growls low and menacing from unseen beasts, rustles in the underbrush like footsteps stalking, the slither of things unknown through the leaves. Hunger gnaws at her belly like a rat in the dark. But worse is the thirst. Lips dry and cracking, throat raw as sandpaper from the screams and the dry air. She laps rainwater from leaves that pool it like tiny cups, a pitiful trickle that tastes of dirt and decay but brings life. quenching just enough to keep the darkness at bay. Injuries make every move agony. Cuts weeping blood, bruises blooming purple like storm clouds on her skin. Possible broken ribs that stab with each shallow breath, turning inhale to torture. But survival kicks in, that primal drive buried deep in the human spirit, whispering, "Fight, girl, fight with everything you've got." Day 2 dawns with a sun that filters through the canopy like dappled hope. But Anna's world is still a haze of pain and confusion. She explores the wreckage with steps tentative and trembling, scavenging like a castaway in her own tragedy, heart pounding with the fear of what she'll find. Finds a bag with candy, sweet salvation in wrapper crinkle. The sugar rush giving a burst of energy that clears the fog a little. A small mercy in the midst of loss. Her mother's necklace in the mud, tangled in roots. She clutches it like a talisman against the darkness, tears flowing hot as memories flood her mind. The grief so raw it bends her double, sobs echoing in the green cathedral. The jungle closes in around her, vines thick as arms wrapping trees towering like giants guarding secrets. No path visible, no sign of civilization. Just a green labyrinth that seems to shift and breathe, alive with hidden dangers. She walks, limping on a leg that's swollen and hot, calling out till her voice fails to a whisper, the silence mocking her efforts. Exhaustion drops her by a stream, the water cool and inviting but risky with parasites. She drinks anyway, stomach cramping in protest but quenching the thirst that's become a constant fire. Night 2. Fire attempt fails. No matches in the debris, wet wood refusing to ignite even with friction's desperate rub. She huddles under leaves piled high, shivering in the damp cold, animals circling just beyond sight. The jaguar's low growl chilling her blood to ice, a tragic reminder that she's no longer at the top of the food chain. Days blend into a haze of pain, persistence, and the jungle's unrelenting assault, each one a tragic test of will. Anna follows the stream downstream, instinct whispering that water leads to people, to civilization hidden somewhere in this green hell. Eats berries she finds along the way, some safe and tart, others poison that twist her gut in knots, vomiting weakening her further, leaving her curled in agony on the forest floor. Maggots crawl in her wounds, a horror that makes her gag. But she recalls her mother's words from childhood stories of nature's ways. Nature heals in strange forms. She lets them clean the rot, grimacing through the squirming disgust, the pain a tragic price for survival. Encounters caimans, black shadows lurking in the water's edge, their snaps missing by inches as she crosses logs slick with moss, heart-pounding terror that leaves her shaking long after. Crosses the stream on a fallen tree, balance shaky from weakness, the fall meaning death in the murky depths below. But she makes it, collapsing on the other bank in tears of relief mixed with exhaustion. Week 1. Her body wasting away, clothes turning to rags from thorns and mud, feet blistered raw from endless walking, each step a tragic reminder of her isolation. Hallucinations creep in, her mother's voice guiding from the trees. "Keep going, Anna, my brave girl." A tragic comfort that brings tears even as it pushes her forward. Finds more plane debris. A fellow passenger's body, mangled and unrecognizable. The sight etching horror deep into her soul. A tragic weight that bends her knees. She buries it shallow with hands that bleed from digging. Prays through sobs that rack her frame. The loneliness crashing down like the rain that never stops. Week 2. Fever hits hard. Infection spreading from wounds uncleaned. Delirium turning the jungle into a tragic maze of ghosts and shadows. She talks to the apparitions, sees her father calling from the vines. "Come home, Anna." The tragic pull of home tearing at her heart. Collapses by the river, wakes to a taper's nudge. A gentle giant with eyes soft as understanding. A sign of life in the tragedy, reminding her she's not entirely alone. Drinks coconut water from fallen nuts. A hydration miracle that clears the fog a bit, strength flickering back like a candle in wind. Day 10. Hears voices. Rescue at last? Hope surges tragic and desperate, but it's loggers. Their camp a rough clearing in the green. She stumbles in, collapses in the mud, the world fading as hands lift her. They nurse her with rough kindness, Radio for help. The 11 days of hell end in a whirl of voices and lights. Rescued. Flown to hospital. The world stunned. A girl fell from the sky. Survived the jungle's maw. A miracle wrapped in tragedy. Anna's life after? Tragic scars on body and soul. But triumph rises from the ashes. She studies biology. Becomes a conservationist like her parents. Founding Amazon preserves to protect the jungle that nearly claimed her. Marries, has kids. Teaches resilience with stories that bring tears to listeners' eyes. Returns to the crash site 30 years later. The jungle changed but memory eternal. A tragic pilgrimage to honor the lost. I fell from the sky to learn to live on Earth, she says in her last interview. Voice-wise with pain and purpose. A tragic beauty in her words. Her story, legend of human spirit against impossible odds. Inspiring films, books, museums. But for her, fame secondary, saving lives through survival teachings, millions of hectares jungle preserved, children loving nature from her books. I fell from the sky to learn to live on Earth, she says, and teach others. Evening in her home on Amazon banks, she sits with grandchildren, telling jungle tales. Not scary survival horrors, but kind stories of nature caring for those who understand and respect it. Outside, the same jungle hums, and Anna listens, smiles. She's home. Always was, in civilization and wild, because she learned the main lesson of those 11 days. Home isn't a place. Home is living in harmony with the world around you.